Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Yapurnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavanto Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Pranamya Ramabhisamatmadhipadam Jagat Prasuti Sthiti Sanyamayanam Tadatmakan Shankara Purvakan Guru Mayopadeshartha Vibhaga Uchyate. So the passage 93, of which we concluded discussion yesterday, talked about two kinds of parichitti. Parichitti means furti, knowledge. Also samvid, consciousness, spurti, shining, knowledge, nitya parichitti, and so to anya nitya parichitti, there is a nitya parichitti, meaning that there is an eternal shining, an eternal revealing, eternal consciousness, eternal knowledge. And then there is also other parichitti, the knowledge for, so that is the knowledge of the self-revealing Atma. Then there is knowledge of the other things, things other than Atma. Anyasya aparichitti rupasya parichedaya. So there is an entity that is Atma, is called Samvit or consciousness, which is self-revealing. And Parichitya, Sfurti or shining of that self-living Atma is Nitya, is eternal, Kutastha, changeless. This is another Parichiti, another method of revealing, which is Anyasya Aparichitti Rupasya. This Atma, that is consciousness. There is the other category, that is unconsciousness, unconscious, which needs to be revealed. So something that is self-revealed and something that needs to be revealed. Parichedaya, for paricheda or spurti or the manifestation of that unconscious, there is this is anitya parichati. That is as though the impermanent revelation, impermanent knowledge. There is the eternal knowledge and the changing or impermanent knowledge. Call it parichati, call it samvit, call it prama, call it knowledge. So two kinds of samvit or parichati or prama or knowledge or consciousness we talked about. Basically, consciousness is one only. That is the eternal consciousness that is self-revealing by which Atma is known or Atma is revealed by itself. Same consciousness also illumines the other objects other than Atma, which is the unconscious, for which you, however, you require a means of knowledge. So there is something that is known without any means of knowledge because it is self-revealing, which is Atma, the consciousness or Samvit, which is eternal consciousness, changeless consciousness. And everything other than that is unconscious, impermanent. So there is also a knowledge of the unconscious, knowledge of the impermanent, which requires a means of knowledge. But unconscious or impermanent is not self-revealing, such as a ghata, pata like a pot, which requires the light of the eyes to reveal them, which requires the light of the mind to reveal that, which requires the light of consciousness to reveal. Ultimately, the light of consciousness alone reveals everything. However, when it comes to revealing itself, it reveals because to reveal its nature. When it comes to unconscious things, anatma, then since to reveal is not their nature, they need to be revealed through pramanam. Pramana means a means of knowledge. In this case, eyes, as well prama or the knowledge of ghata, pata takes place. So knowledge is called parichitya or prama, the valid knowledge. Which what is prama? Anadhigatam, apaditam jnanam. Knowledge of something that is not yet known, not known so far, and knowledge which is not subject to being negated. So that is why example was given as to how when it comes to the iron, when iron illumines, it is not because of itself, because of fire which is there in the iron. Or when the water burns, that also is not because of water, it's because of the fire which is in water. So fire and sun are the self-illuminating entities, whereas iron and water are not self-illuminating, not self-burning, they illuminate or burn because of something else. So two categories of entities, Atma and Anatma. Self-revealing Atma, which does not require a means of knowledge, and Anatma, which is not self-revealing, which needs to be revealed. And for revealing requires the pramanam or the means of knowledge, as well the knowledge or prama takes place. Now, with this background, the discussion continues with the next passage, 94. So, Tika says, Nanu samvidaha pramana phalatva prasiddehe katham nityatvam iti akshipade अनित्यत्व एव इति ननु संविदः प्रमाण फलत्व प्रसिद्धेः. Samvid means knowledge. That knowledge is always the pramana phalam. Knowledge is always the result of operating a means of knowledge. Like the knowledge of part is always the result of operating means of knowledge, eyes in this case. So only when you bring to operation the means of knowledge, which is in this case sense organ, then only the knowledge of these objects take place, and that knowledge is impermanent because that ghata is replaced by pata replaced by matha. So what is phalam? What is outcome? Outcome is always what is outcome which comes into being. What comes into being is limited in time. So what comes into being also goes away from us, or it subsides also. So whatever comes into being is always impermanent. So like ghata the cognition of a part, comes into being when there is a contact with the eyes with the part, and a part thought takes place, and then there is knowledge of part. But that is the result of the pramana phalam. What is pramana? Eyes are pramana. The phalam is result. When eyes come in contact with an object such as a part, then the part knowledge takes place, and that knowledge which takes place as a result of bringing to operation the pramana means of knowledge is always impermanent. Samvidah pramana phalatva prasiddehe. Any samvid, any knowledge is well known to be the result of operation of the pramanam or corresponding means of knowledge. Katham nityatvam. So how can parichiti or samvid or prama or knowledge, how can it be permanent when the knowledge always takes place as a result of operation of means of knowledge? Meaning that when that means of knowledge, such as eyes, are not brought into operation, there is no knowledge of the part. When they are brought into operation, there is knowledge of part. And when they again turn away, there is no knowledge. So this knowledge always is the result of the operation of the means of knowledge, and therefore it is impermanent. How do you say that knowledge is permanent? Katham nityatvam. Samvit or consciousness is permanent, eternal. How do you say? Because consciousness that we know is the consciousness of ghata, pata, etc. We are conscious of things. And that consciousness of things always is the result of the operation of means of knowledge. Like these words are being heard. The organ of hearing reveals these words, and therefore the consciousness of these words takes place. And as words are changing, consciousness also changes. Therefore, the consciousness of things is always impermanent because that comes into being as a result of the operation of pramana or means of knowledge. So, samvida katham nityatvam. How can samvid or the knowledge or awareness be permanent, eternal? In a different way now, the akshepa is made. How pramata can be permanent, that was thought about. So different ways this is now being how self is consciousness and that is eternal and changeless. So the passage says Anityatve eva pramasyat nanityatve iti ched. So prama or the knowledge can only be with reference to things that are impermanent such as ghatapada. How can there be knowledge of something which is eternal? Knowledge can take place only of something that is impermanent, like the objects, names, and forms. Because how does the knowledge take place? When a corresponding means of knowledge comes into operation, then the knowledge of an object, such as name and form part, takes place. So, for the knowledge to take place, always pramana or means of knowledge is required. And therefore, that knowledge is always generated as a result of the operation of the pramana means of knowledge. Therefore, that knowledge always is impermanent. How do it is very permanent, Samvit? That is permanent in the consciousness. How can it? Because the consciousness that we know of is always impermanent. So, now what is knowledge? That is the what is knowledge or what is consciousness? So, consciousness that we know right now is consciousness of something, consciousness of a name and a form. Conscious as such is not known. What is known, the consciousness that is known to us, is always consciousness of something. And that consciousness is always impermanent. So consciousness always refers to impermanent. How can there be consciousness with reference to nitya or permanent? Then the Tika says, Arthavagatirhi Brahma Natasyaha Swarupatah Eva Anityatve Kalpakam Asti Iti Samadhatte Na Avagaterite. Is it not that consciousness is always impermanent? Because we are always conscious of something which is impermanent. And there is the consciousness of impermanent is always impermanent. So how can consciousness be permanent? So now a fundamental answer is given. Arthava gatirhi prama. What is prama? What is knowledge? Artha avagatihi. Avagati means knowledge. Knowledge of an object is called prama. न तस्या स्वरूपतः एव अनित्यत्वे कल्पकमस्ति. You cannot say that the prama or the valid knowledge is always impermanent. Anityatve kalpakam nasti. That there is a reason to prove that consciousness is always impermanent. We do not know of a of reason for that. It is samadatte. He says, my experience is that knowledge always takes place and therefore is impermanent. So when you say Ghatagyanam, the part knowledge takes place, therefore the part knowledge is impermanent. So knowledge is impermanent. Point is part impermanent or knowledge impermanent? There is Prama, Ghatagyanam is there. So Ghatagyanam comes and Ghatagyanam goes. Therefore the Jnanam or the consciousness is impermanent. So when you conclude that consciousness is impermanent, what is the reason? Just because a part knowledge comes and goes, does it mean is it the part that comes and goes or the knowledge that comes and goes? It's a very important point. So this is another way of contemplating upon the nature of knowledge. And therefore, there is no valid reason with you to conclude that consciousness is impermanent. So the answer is given. Na avagatehe nityatva anityatvayoho vishesha anupapattehe. Avagati is knowledge. You can call avagati, prama, knowledge, parichitti, consciousness. Nityatva anityatvayoho vishesha anupapattehe. That there is a impermanent consciousness and permanent consciousness. So what is the difference between impermanent consciousness and permanent consciousness? Anupatte. This is upapatti. No reasoning to arrive at the conclusion that this consciousness is impermanent and that consciousness is permanent, there is no reason to arrive at this conclusion. This is Sangraha Vakya. This is the reply in brief. Then Tika says, Sangraham Vivaranoti. That reply in capsule form is not Vivaranoti, is now expounded by the teacher. So this is the style. Samasa and Vyasa. Saying something briefly and then, so you get the idea and then that idea is expanded in your mind. Nahi. So the text says, Nahi avagate pramatve anitya avagate praman न नित्या इति विशेषः अवगम्यते नहीं. Indeed, avagate pramatve. When avagati is prama, nitya avagati hi prama. That only eternal knowledge is called prama. No, anitya avagati is prama. Only impermanent knowledge is called valid prama. No, nitya. So that impermanent knowledge alone is called prama or valid knowledge, and permanent knowledge is not called prama. No vishesha avagamyate. There is no distinction between the prama or the knowledge that the consciousness is impermanent or permanent. Only when the consciousness is impermanent, then alone is called prama or valid knowledge. And when consciousness permanent is not called prama, there is no rule to arrive at this conclusion. So look at the Tiga. चक्षुरादिद्वारक बुद्धिवृत्ते व्यक्तायाः अवगतेः प्रमात्वे सति नित्यायाः प्रमात्वं न भवति अनित्यायास्तु भवति इति विशेषः नहि गम्यते विनिगमन अभावात् ityartha. Reply is given bit by bit for the student to again raise a doubt, and then you reply that and raise a doubt. That's how the unfoldment. Everything is not told in one sentence. One by one, things are being told. That there is no rule that avagati or knowledge means it has to be impermanent. That impermanent knowledge alone is called knowledge, and permanent knowledge is not called knowledge. There is no rule like that. So now Chakshuradi Dwaraka Buddhivritti. Buddhivritti, a mode of the mind, thought of the mind. Chakshuradi Dwaraka. That is always cited as an example. The Ghatakara, etc. Because Chakshu or eyes are this is where we get the most of our knowledge. Shrunuyama Devaha and Pashyema Akshabihi. So seeing and what knowledge we get by seeing is the most clear knowledge, leaving no doubt. Therefore, always this is taken as an example. But it applies to all knowledge arriving from the five organs of perception. Chakshuradi, this is. So dwara, this is dwara. The gateway such as eye, that means eyes, ears. Chakshuradi dwaraka, buddhivritti. So buddhivritti means a thought of the mind such as the ghatakara, like a thought of the nature of the form of pot. We have chakshuradi dwaraka, which is the result of the chakshu or the eyes. So consciousness emerging through the gateway of eyes, contacting an object such as a pot, results into the knowledge of pot called the ghatakara vritti. So in that vritti of the nature of Ghataka, avagate, so that is how the knowledge of a part takes place. So that part knowledge that takes place because of the part vritti, avagate, pramatve sati is called prama. As long as it is not the it's knowledge of something which is there, not memory, and knowledge which is valid knowledge and not brahma or delusion, so long is called prama. Pramatva sati. Thus, if the knowledge of part knowledge is prama or the valid knowledge, nityayaha pramatvam na bhavati. In that, the consciousness that is involved, the conscious part, that consciousness has to be impermanent for it to be called the knowledge of ghata. And that consciousness cannot be permanent for the ghata jnana to take place. Follow the thing here, that when ghata jnanam takes place, the part knowledge takes place, that knowledge aspect, is there a rule that that part knowledge will take place only when that knowledge is impermanent, and part knowledge will not take place when that knowledge is permanent? How do you arrive at the conclusion that knowledge is impermanent? The part is impermanent. But how do you say the part knowledge is impermanent? Vinigamakam. Is there something which enables you to make a conclusion, a logical conclusion? What is the reasoning that you apply to arrive at the conclusion that the part knowledge has to be impermanent for the part to be known, and part knowledge cannot be permanent for the part to be known? So, what reveals the part is the knowledge or consciousness. It has to be impermanent consciousness, then only part knowledge can take place. Or what reveals the part cannot be permanent conscious. Is there a rule? What reveals the part has to be impermanent. Is there a rule? What is revealed is impermanent. So cognition is impermanent. But what reveals the part, how do you say that that is impermanent? What is the gamakam? What is the logical reasoning for you to arrive at that conclusion? Nityaya pramatvam na bhavati, anityaya bhavati. Only when that consciousness that reveals the part, that consciousness also has to be impermanent, then only the part knowledge can take place. That consciousness cannot be permanent for the part knowledge to take place. Is there a valid reason for you to arrive at that conclusion? So Tika says, Tatra Vinigamana Abhavaha Asiddha Iti Shishya Shankare Nityayam Iti. So teacher says there is absence of a concluding proof. Then Vinigamana, he says no. The absence of a concluding proof is not established. Vinigamana Abhava Siddha. Teacher says that I do not find in your reasoning there is the proof with which you can come to conclusion that the prama or the knowledge has to be impermanent, then only it can be called prama. Then Shishya says that absence of the concluding reason is not proven, meaning that there is a concluding reason. So text says, Nityayam Pramatuhu Apeksha Abhavaha Anityayam Tu Yatnantaritatvat Avagatihi Apekshate Iti Visheshasyat Iti Chet. Nityayam Pramatuhu Apeksha Bhavaha. If the knowledge is eternal, then there cannot be desire for knowledge, understand? Eternal means what is already there. If according to you the knowledge is eternal, knowledge can be eternal, that even eternal knowledge also can can eliminate non-eternal objects. So what eliminates non-eternal objects as a spot that consciousness has to be non-eternal is not a rule. We should look, there is a difference between the process by which the knowledge of impermanent takes place and knowledge of permanent takes place. If knowledge is permanent, means it's already there, then there is no desire to gain that knowledge. It's already there. So nityaya, if that avagati, the knowledge, the awareness or consciousness is nitya, means always there, already there. Pramatu apeksha bhavaha pramada, the knower has no apeksha. There is no need on the part of the knower to know because it's permanent, knowledge is permanent, therefore is already there, therefore the knower will not have the desire to know because already known. So desire can be for something which is not there. So you may want to know the part which is unknown to you, therefore you may make an effort to know that part. What effort will you make? Then you bring into operation your eyes and your mind and you focus your attention. And that's how the part's knowledge takes place. So only when something is not known, meaning only when a knowledge is impermanent, it's not existing now, that you have to do something to create that knowledge. That's our usual experience. Anityayam tu yatnantaritatvat. If only prama, the knowledge anitya, impermanent, which is not there right now, then only this fellow wants to know. And when he wants to know that yatnantar, then the yatna is carried out. What is the yatna? The effort that he brings into operation the appropriate means of knowledge, and that's how the knowledge of perception takes place. So avagati apeksharedi. When the knowledge is not there, then there is a desire to gain that knowledge. And for gaining a knowledge, I bring into operation appropriate means of knowledge. The effort is made as a result of which the knowledge takes place. That's how knowledge takes place. So, if knowledge is already there is no desire to know. And therefore, the pramata knower will not have a desire to know. If the knowledge is already there. But we find that the pramata knower always makes an effort to know things, and apeksha is there is always a desire to know things. That shows that things are not known. That shows that knowledge is impermanent. And therefore I must make an effort to create that knowledge such as Ghatagnana. So how do you say that the impermanence of knowledge is not established? This shows that the pramata has a desire to know, and to fulfill that desire, it brings in operation a means of knowledge. As well as with the knowledge takes place, that itself is the gamakam, that itself is what leads to the conclusion that knowledge is impermanent. If knowledge was permanent and it was valid knowledge too, then it's already there. In which case, there would not be a desire to know. In which case, there will be no need to bring into operation the pramana means of knowledge. So, fact that we bring into operation means of knowledge because of the desire to know shows that the knowledge is not there. If knowledge is permanent, it's already there. If it's already there, then there is no desire to know it. There is no desire to know, then there is no need for pramana means of knowledge, no effort. So, fact that we go on making effort to know shows that knowledge is not there, and so it's not permanent. Iti visheshasya. So for impermanent knowledge and permanent knowledge, there is a difference. The teacher said, what's the difference if the knowledge is permanent or impermanent? How do you say that? Only impermanent knowledge is called prama. If knowledge is permanent, it is not called prama. So what brings that difference? This is the difference. What's the difference? Only when the knowledge is impermanent, then there is a effort, and that is how the knowledge of Ghatapada takes place. So therefore the knowledge has to be impermanent, it has not to be there. For me to have the desire for knowledge, knowledge should not be there. And then I want to create that knowledge. For that I make an effort. So Tika says, Avagatehe Nityatve Karaka Vyapara Vayartham Syat Ityam Vishesha Ityartha. Avagate Nit, if knowledge is already is eternal, is already there. Karaka Vyapara Vayartham. There will be no point in the Vyapara or the activity of Karaka. What is Karaka? The knower, the means of knowledge, the knowing, all this called Vyapara. For example, Ghata Jnanam can take place, first of all, there is a Pramata, knower. The knower brings in operation the Pramana means of knowledge. So, knower is what? The first case. Means of knowledge is the third case. Wants to know an object, second case. And then brings to Kriya. All of these activity takes place for the Ghata Jnana to take place. Is it not so? It's called Karaka Vyapara. Any Kriya or any activity, action requires minimum these three fellows. Who? The Karta, the Karma, and Karanam. Other stuff is okay, but this three has primarily required. Grammarians justify anyway, so they have to include the Sampradhanam, this, that, and so, yeah, Apadhanam and Adhikaranam. We don't deny that. But primarily you require these three. Or you require a place where knowledge takes place, etc. So, all this Vyapara would have been if knowledge is already there, why should any action take, why should you perform any activity? If you already, I mean, your stomach is full, why should have the activity of eating? If there's no thirst, why should there be an activity of quenching your thirst? Why should you perform any activity if the result is already there? If you say knowledge is permanent, means it is there. If it's there, then there is no desire to have that knowledge. Then there will be no activity of karaka. Pramata is a karaka. Knower, known, means of knowledge. Vayartyam. That would become what? Meaningless, purposeless. But we are doing that. And purpose is served. And knowledge takes place. And there's a desire of knowledge. All this can't be explained. If knowledge is permanent, means already there. So that is why I say that knowledge that we know always of Ghata Jnana, etc., is impermanent knowledge. So Prama is impermanent. Alright. So the Tika continues. Pramatuhu swa avagatehe nityatve pramana vyapara vaiyartham apadyade kimva vishaya avagatehe nityatve. Alright, now let us talk of the knowledge. So, what knowledge, when you say knowledge is impermanent, what knowledge do you mean? There is a pramata, there is a prameya, the knower, an object of knowledge. So, pramatuhu swa avagatehe nityatve pramana vyapara vaiyarthamapadyate. So, pramata is the knowledge of pramata is eternal, and that is why there is no means of operation required for knowing the pramata. Is that what you mean? He says that what is the use of these means of knowledge, etc., are given to us and we are using them. They'll become meaningless. So they'll become meaningless with reference to self knowledge or with reference to knowledge of Anatma. So pramana vyapara vayatham swagatehe avagate nityatve apadyate. Because self knowledge is eternal, therefore there is no need for means of knowledge. Is that what you mean? Kim va Vishaya avagatehe nityatve, or Vishaya, the object, the knowledge of object is permanent, therefore there will be no need for the operation. So what do you mean by knowledge? You mean Atma Jnanam or Anatma Jnanam? Simple as that. So now the knowledge is being divided into two categories. Swa avagatehi, the knowledge of one's own self, and Vishaya avagatehi, knowledge of an object other than oneself, which is permanent, which is impermanent. Then Tika says, Na adhya ishtapattehe ityaha. When you say that permanent knowledge cannot be prama, do you mean that in sense of the self-knowledge for which the pramana vyapara, the bringing the operation, means of knowledge, etc., is not required? What will happen to all of this? Is that in case of self-knowledge, you see the meaning, worthlessness or uselessness of the perception, organs of perception? That's good, is ishtapatti. That's desirable. You don't require eyes, ears, etc. means of knowledge, know the self, because self is self-evident. Siddhartha. So the passage says, Siddhartha Atmanah Pramatuhu Swadasiddhi Pramana Nirapekshata Eva Iti. Good. You say Pramana Vyapara Vayarthyam. Only Vyapara, the putting into practice, the Pramana, etc., will become meaningless if the knowledge is permanent. This is good. When it comes to self knowledge, self is permanent, so self knowledge also is permanent, and therefore you are right that there is no need for the operation of sense organs or mind. That's good. You know what it means? It means that the self is self effulgent. That self is the nature of the eternal consciousness. Your own things are establishing that. In a way, by the reasoning that you are providing, and you are concerned about the meaninglessness of pramana, itself establishes that there is something which does not require pramana because it is always self revealed, and that is yourself. Never, self is always self revealed. That it is permanent consciousness itself is established. Siddhatarahi Atmana Pramatu Atma or Pramata. So Pramata means knower, is so Atma is called know very attentively to distinguish from the known and knowledge. Svata Siddhi Siddha. That means that the Atma is always shining. It is permanent knowledge, doesn't need to be revealed. And so it is self shining, self existing is proven by the very argument that you are making that if the knowledge is permanent, there is no need for the pramanam, which is the right thing. Pramana nirpekshata eva, because knowledge of Atma does not require pramanam. Nirpekshata means without any apeksha or need for pramanam. That shows that Atma is a permanent consciousness. So that is what we want to establish here. See the Tika. Nitya avagati pakshe pramana nirpeksham chet tvaya animamsyate तर्हि प्रमातुः आत्मनः स्वरूपस्य स्वतःसिद्धिः स्वप्रकाशतात् प्रमाणनिरपेक्षतया एव सिद्धा इत्यर्थः. The same passage is explained by Tikakara. Tarhi, in that case, what case? Nitya avagati pakshe. If avagati or knowledge or consciousness is nitya or eternal, two pakshas are there. Is consciousness eternal or non-eternal? He says consciousness should be non-eternal. If it's eternal, then there is no need for desire for consciousness, it is already there. If that was so, the consciousness of eternal, then what would the need for the means of knowledge? All of that would become meaningless. They're all there. They cannot be there if the consciousness is eternal. He says, let us from your statement, let us draw this conclusion. Nitya avagati pakshe, the avagati or the knowledge or consciousness, nitya or eternal. Then pramana nirapekshata. So pramana nirapeksham che tvaya anumamsade. Anumanam. You infer the need, the lack of need of pramana or means of knowledge because it is self-revealing. Yadi tarhi, that tarhi comes from what? The passage. So yadi and tarhi. If, so you'd understand. Tvaya anuman. So chet means that if you infer that there is no need for pramanam, if avagati or consciousness is eternal or permanent, therefore there is no need for means of knowledge because knowledge is already there, always there. If this is your anumana, tarhi pramatuhu. So pramatu means what? Atmana pramatu. Pramatu atmana. Swatasiddhi what? Swarupasya swatasiddhi. What does it mean? Swatasiddhi means swaprakashada. Then pramana nirpekshitaya eva siddha ityartha. Siddha is the first verb, but should be last for, as far as Anvaya is concerned. So if that is then Pramatu, who means Pramatu Atmana, Pramata, who is Atma, the self, means what? Atma is Swarupasya. For the essential nature of Paramatma, or the knower, which is Atma, Swata Siddhi, Swaprakashata Siddha, then it is evident from your own statement, it is clear that Atma is Swata Siddha, is always self shining. Because for knowing the Atma, you do not require any eyes, ears, etc. It is self revealing. So, Swaprakashata, Pramana Nirapekshata, ultimately, this is what the teacher wants to convey and want the student to understand. For knowing that process of knowing the Atma is different from the process of knowing the Anatma, non-self. Therefore, knowing the non-self, you require the means of knowledge because they are not self-shining. So you have to illumine them through the means of knowledge. And that's all the knowledge we are accustomed to. So same rule we are extending to Atma Jnanam also. If knowledge takes place only by bringing to effort, means the bringing to operation means of knowledge, the yatna is required, then all knowledge is created is impermanent. How can there be permanent knowledge? This is a question. As best as we understand, for knowing things, we know that something can be known only when an appropriate pramana or means of knowledge is brought into operation, and then knowledge takes place, and therefore knowledge is impermanent. If knowledge is permanent, then what's the use of these eyes and ears? They are meant to reveal something. If something is already revealed, then you don't need them. Fact that they are given to you and that's how knowledge takes place. How can knowledge be permanent? Says if the knowledge is permanent, there will be no need for pramana means of knowledge. It's okay. Ishtapatti, that is exactly what. So where the knowledge is permanent, there is no need of the means of knowledge. And so there is no rule that means of knowledge always required. It is required only with reference to Vishaya or the objects or non-self. That means you don't require it for the self. That proves that Atma, the self, is self-shining, self-effulgent. That is established. So the Tika, Anityasya Aswaprakashasya cha Jadatvat Atmatva Anupatte Ityabhipraya. See, in a different way it is approached. In Kenopanishad, na tatra chakshur gacchati, na vag gacchati, na manah. Chakshur na gacchati, organs of perception have no scope with reference to that one. No vag gacchati, organs of actions have no scope and words have no scope. The manah, the mind also has no reach. But this way describing in a negative way. Tell me something is na vidma, na vijanima, yathayata anushisya. In what other way can the knowledge of Atma or to be conveyed to you we don't know? Tell me something. Anya devatat viditat atho aviditat adhi is different from the known and different from the unknown. So known and unknown between them cover all Vishayas. So it's different from Vishaya, different Anatma. It is Atma. Again, if you use the word Atma, then he may have his own notion of what Atma is. So, Vidita and Avidita, he wants to exclude, negate. whatever remains by negating vidita, which is known, avidita unknown, that is Atma. So there is no way, there are no words to describe because words will always describe something which is limited. So here now the discussion is brought in a different way. This is always a unique way of doing things anyway. So permanent knowledge and impermanent knowledge. We know knowledge is always impermanent because we are only familiar with knowledge of the Vishayas or objects or anatma is always impermanent. So Prama is impermanent. How can Prama be permanent? How can permanent be Prama? He says Prama involves consciousness of something. So that something is Vishaya, that is impermanent. How do you conclude that consciousness that reveals that impermanent is impermanent? It is yourself that is permanent consciousness, which is self-revealing and reveals everything else. So that is called self-effulgence, which reveals itself as well as reveals everything else. What is unconscious, which does not reveal itself, nor does it reveal anything else? But Shishya is only familiar with the knowledge of the non-self, that's all we know. And we know how that knowledge takes place by bringing into operation a means of knowledge. And how that knowledge is impermanent because it is replaced by another knowledge. So knowledge is always impermanent. How can knowledge be permanent? If knowledge is permanent, then what's the use of creating that? You don't have to create it. If you don't have to create, you don't require means of knowledge. All of this will become meaningless. He says, good. It is meaningless with reference to self-knowledge. So there is another kind of knowledge where you don't require the means of knowledge. So this is what the teacher wants to communicate. Anyway, let us continue. Nanu atma pramayaha nityatvat yadi pramana anapeksha tarhi prama abhavasya eva tatra nityatvat pramana anapeksha kim nasyat iti shankade abhavepi iti. Now this is twisting. Nanu Atma Pramayaha Nityatva. You say that Atma Prama, self knowledge is Nitya, is permanent, is eternal, meaning always there. Yadi Praman Apeksha, because the knowledge of a self, the conscious, always there. Therefore, you don't have to reveal that. And therefore, there is no Pramana means of knowledge required. Pramana is always required to reveal something. What is already self-revealed and always revealed doesn't require a pramana means of knowledge. You don't require sense organ. Na tatra chakshur gacchati. You don't describe it, na vag gacchati. You don't visualize it, na manah gacchati. Then, tarhi prama abhavasyeva. So what is nitya now? Is prama nitya or there is no prama? So there is no conventional prama or knowledge with reference to Atma. This knowledge with reference to Ghatapata, that's called Prama. For Atma, that kind of Prama is not there. Prama that arises and goes away is not there. So then, is Prama eternal or absence of Prama eternal? There is absence of Prama in case of Atma. See, if you understand Prama as Ghatajnanam, Patajnanam, as knowledge of an object, then objective knowledge is not in Atma, so that is also eternal. So what is Nitya? Is consciousness that Atma is Nitya? Or lack of consciousness of Atma is Nitya? There is no consciousness of Atma. Atma is, consciousness of a part is created by Pramanam. You don't need to create consciousness of Atma. So if consciousness of Atma is not there, that means unconscious of Atma is always there. You follow? So is consciousness is Nitya or unconsciousness Nitya? Is Prama Nitya or Prama Abhava Nitya? You see, if you understand the difference, if Prama means knowledge, so knowledge of part. You say that Atma is not the object of knowledge. Atma is very Swarup of the knower. Therefore, Atma is not the object of knowledge because you cannot objectify. That means there is no knowledge of Atma. There is knowledge of pot, all right, but there is no knowledge of Atma because it is not object of knowledge. That means knowledge of Atma never takes place. So Prama Abhava, absence of Prama is eternal because it never takes place. So Prama of the Ghata takes place. In that manner, Prama of Atma does not take place. So Prama Abhava is Nitya. So therefore, what is Nitya? So therefore, the passage says 98, Abhavepi Apeksha Bhavaha Nityatvat eva iti ched. So there is no desire for knowledge. If either the knowledge is always there, understand this, there will be no desire for something if it is always there, no desire for something is never there. Meaning that I won't have desire for a head on my shoulder because always there. So I will never have desire for what is there. I will not have desire for horns on my head because they are never there. So if lack of desire is a criterion, so because the ghata is unknown, therefore there is desire to know the ghata. You say there is no desire for knowing Atma because Atma is always known. There is no desire. But desire for knowing Atma will be there if Atma is already known. But desire of Atma, knowing Atma may not be there because there is no knowledge of Atma. If Atma can never be known, you follow? Then also the desire for knowledge will not take place. If Atma is always known, then also desire for knowledge cannot take place. If Atma can never be known, is never known, then also desire will not take place. We said the other day that what is called Turi or the force or the Atma is never experienced in waking, dream, and deep sleep. Then also there will be never a desire to know. There cannot be desire to know something that is not experienced. Always desire to know something that is experienced in a general way and you want to experience it particularly. Timbuktu. Somebody says Timbuktu. Then you want to know what is Timbuktu? Where is it? If you never heard of it, then there is no desire for Timbuktu. As I say, 50 years ago, nobody knew, or 100 years ago, what is black hole. No desire to know what. Now, these days, what is black hole? You go to Google and you do all kinds of things and go to books, and because you know that there is something called black hole. But if there is no such thing as black hole, then also there will be no desire. If there is no such thing as self-knowledge, because self cannot be known, then also there is no that. Then the absence of knowledge also is permanent because self can never be known. Either self is always known, therefore there is no desire to know, or self can never be known, therefore also there is no desire to know. So apeksha is not there. Just because there is no desire to know the Atma doesn't mean that Atma is of the nature of knowledge. Maybe Atma is of the nature of not knowledge, is absent, non-existent. So abhavepi apeksha bhava. What is apeksha bhava? That came earlier. Pramatuhu apeksha bhava nityayam. If the knowledge is eternal, then also the pramata has no desire to know because already known. Or abhavepi. If that pramata can never be known, then also there will be no desire to know because it can never be known. Nityatva. So absence or abhava is also nitya. Therefore, there is no desire for abhava. Bhava is all eternal, no desire for that. Abhava also is nitya, no desire. So having no desire for knowledge of Atma is not the criterion to establish Atma is self-effulgent. So Siddhartha Atmana. Teacher said that because there is no desire to know the self and there is no need for the means of knowledge, that proves that Atma is self-revealing. He says that will be the condition if Atma is never revealing also. Or Atma can never be known. Then also same situation will be there. So how do you draw the conclusion that Atma is self-effulgent? There is no need for knowing Atma will be if there is no knowledge of Atma also. Just to cover all the cover all conditions. So Tika says, Prama abhave api ityartha. So abhave api means what? Prama abhave api. Prama abhava, prama. So prama abhava. If prama bhava is there, then also is no desire for prama. And prama abhava is there, then also is no desire for prama. So having no desire for prama will be common. So no desire for prama cannot be the criterion to conclude that Atma is self-effulgent. Tika says, Pariharte na avagatehe ide. So this conclusion that why not? There is no prama of Atma. Atma can never be known. There is Atma, or Atma is not there, can never be known. There also there is no desire to know. No. So the answer is given, no. That conclusion is not right. Can we draw that conclusion? That prama abhava is there. So prama bhava ke prama abhava. So just because there is no desire for knowledge in case of Atma, the conclusion can be knowledge always there or knowledge can never be there. You follow? So why not we say that knowledge can never be there? He says no, that's not right. No, so that the passage says, na avagate eva atmani sadbhavat iti parihritam etada. Hey, this is already established that Atma is of the nature of consciousness. So where is the question of the paksha that Atma is unconscious? If Atma is never known, cannot be, then also there will be no apeksha. But this is already established that Atma is consciousness by nature. Avagate eva atmani sadbhavat. Avagati, knowledge, consciousness alone exists in Atma. Atma is the nature of consciousness. Iti, we have already replied this doubt earlier. So the Tika says, Avagate atmani sadbhavat eva pramana anapeksha. So pramana anapeksha is the question here. That there is no need for a pramana means of knowledge for knowing the Atma because Atma is of the nature of knowledge. It's already you told. There is no need for operating means of knowledge in case of Atma because means of knowledge generates knowledge, but Atma is already of the nature of knowledge, therefore there is no need for means of generating knowledge called pramana. This has already been established. Why are you saying again the opposite thing? Avagate atmani sadbhavadeva. Because Atma is always of the nature of avagati, therefore there is no pramana, apeksha is already known, therefore there is no need for means of knowledge. The Tika says, Nahi avagati abhavashanka avakashaha. But what if the knowledge of Atma can never take place? Then also there will be no desire for knowledge. So, nahi avagati abhavashanka avakashaha. There is no scope for a doubt that there is no consciousness in Atma. That Atma is not the nature of consciousness, or you can never know Atma. That Atma can never be known, and therefore there is an absence of the knowledge of Atma. There is no scope for that paksha. Why is it so? Says asamhatasya sanghata sakshina chitimatva upapadanat ityartha. He says asamhata. We've all along been talking about anatma is always a sanghata. Anatma is created always an assembly or aggregate of various things, and Atma is not part of a sanghata or assembly, a samhata, which is not a part of a sanghata or assembly. Then who is he? Sanghata Sakshina. He is a very witness or eliminator of sanghata. Because Sanghata is assembly is always is unconscious, therefore it always requires something else to illuminate, and Atma is not part of assembly, is illuminated. Because illumination takes place. See, Prama takes place. That you have to accept. Ghata Jnanam, etc. takes place. You can't deny that. We started from there. When Ghata Jnana will take place, when Ghata is revealed or illuminated. Who illumines? Ghata cannot illuminate itself. So illumines. The witness of Ghata illumines. So there is an illuminator. There is Atma and this is already established. There has to be someone that is an illuminator. Then only this illumination will take place. So how do you come to say that there is no illumination in Atma? How can that paksha be there? Asamhatasya Sangata Sakshina Chitimatva Upapadana. Somewhere the consciousness has to be there. For knowledge to take place, somewhere the consciousness has to be there. Because knowledge takes place, Ghata Jnana, etc. No, there cannot be conscious Ghata because it is Sanghata. Is an assembly, is created, is unconscious. So there is something where the consciousness is. Now, every Sanghata, every assembly is always unconscious. So what is conscious should not be an assembly. So part of assembly should not be part of assembly. Must be distinct from assembly. You call it Sakshi, Adhisthana. The existence of an entity suggests that which must be independent of the Sanghata, which must be revealing everything, which must be self-evident, itself is proven by the fact that in day-to-day life the perception takes place. And therefore, na avagatehe atmani sadbhavat. Avagati or consciousness is there only in the Atma, it is already been established. And therefore, this question on your, this doubt has already been resolved by saying that Atma is nature of consciousness. And therefore, to say that Atma is cannot be known is not so. Or says here, Athva Atma Siddhi Pramanam Na Apekshate Iti Vadata Praman Abhavam Apekshate Ityuktam Syat Iti Matva Tadapekshapi Tava Na Upapadyate Atma Siddhe Nityatvat Eva Iti Shankate Abhavepi Iti. So either you go back to passage 98 where Abhavepi. So one explanation was that what is the reason why you say that there is no expectation of the knowledge in case of Atma? Because Atma is always known or Atma can never be known. Is Atma is always self-revealing. Therefore, the question of Atma can never be known is not there. That can be one explanation of the resolving the doubt of the disciple. Or Athava, or what the Shishya means can be different. Athva Atma Siddhi Pramanam Napekshate iti vadata. When somebody says Atma Siddhi, the existence of Atma does not require any means of knowledge because it is self-existing, self-revealing. Iti vadata. Pramana, so Atma Siddhi Pramanam na apekshate. Or Pramana Abhavam apekshate. Atma Siddhi na Pramana apekshate. Apekshate can go with na or it can go with pramanam. So Atma Siddhi apekshate. What? Na pramanam, pramana abhavam. So that sentence, Atma Siddhi pramanam na apekshate, for proving that Atma is there or establishing Atma, you don't need the means of knowledge because self-effulgent. Or that Atma Siddhi does not require that there is no pramanam. Praman abhavam apekshate. That Atma Siddhi or that Atma is there requires that there should be no pramanam. That's just a grammatical, jugglery, nothing else. Iduktam sya. This is what you say. You say that Atma Siddhi does not require pramanam. That also can mean that Atma requires there should be no pramanam. See, E plus B is equal to C. Then C minus A equal to B, So you say A plus B equals C. No, you said C minus B equal to A. What did you say? So look at this. Atma Siddhi Pramanam na apekshate. For, for proving that Atma is there, you do not need a proof because Atma is self-proving. Or Atma Siddhi Apramanam apekshate. Atma Siddhi requires that there should be no pramanam. That sentence can be interpreted that way. Iti vadata. Pramana abhava apekshate iti. So Atma Siddhi also requires there should be no pramanam. Iti matva tad apeksha bhi tana upadyate. Therefore, apeksha abhava, in that case also if pramana is not there, then there is no pramana apeksha also. Atma Siddhi nityatva abhave. So there is another way of interpreting that statement. So Tika says, Swata Siddhi Pramananirapekshya Shabdabhyam Sarva Anapeksha Prakashmanan Atmaswarupasyeva Vivakshitatvat Natra Shanka Avakashah Iti Pariharate Na Avagatehe Iti. See, when you use expression Swata Siddhi or Pramana Nirpeksha, Swata Siddhi means what? Self-shining, self-existing. Pramana Nirpeksha meaning that no need, no necessity of a Pramanam because it is revealing itself. Doesn't require Pramana to reveal. Iti Shabdabhyam. So when we use the word Swata Siddhi, we use the word Pramana Nirpeksham, the absence of need for a Pramana, need for proof. Pramana means proof also. Atma is self-proving, so you don't need something else to prove. The Ghata does not prove itself, it requires the Pramana to prove that Ghata is there. Atma is always, a lamp. You require a pot to be illumined by a lamp to prove that lamp is there. You don't require something to prove the lamp is there because self-revealing. So sarva anapeksha prakashamana atmaswarupasya vivakshitatvat. When we say swata siddha or pramana nirpeksha, what we mean is sarva anapeksha prakashamana atmaswarupa. So atmaswarupa is what? Prakasha. What prakasha? Sarva anapeksha. See, there is a prakasha, there is an apeksha, prakasha, there is anopeksha. Prakash of a pot has an apeksha of pramanam. Prakash of Atma has no apeksha of pramanam. So pramana nirapeksha means what? Sarva anapeksha prakashmanatvam. Swata siddhi means what? Prakashmanatvam. So the shining of pot is something that requires a proof called pramanam. Shining of Atma is such that does not require any proof for pramanam. That is what is meant there. And then, not that there is an abhava there of, so, vivakshitatvat natra shankavasha kasha. So for you to say that there is an expectation of the absence of pramana, that is all nonsense because we already said that it doesn't expect anything. Atma doesn't have any expectation. Then how do you say there is an expectation of absence of pramana? Atma is nirapeksha, free from any expectation. So don't bring expectation of abhava also, because free from expectation, that's all. So to say that free from expectation means the expectation of not having something, that doesn't come into picture at all because free from expectation. Free from expectation of non-expectation also. Therefore, free from expectation is what is meant. So avagate atmani sadbhavadi parihrutameva. So both ways that answer can be understood. Okay, we'll continue tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmedi मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ॐ।